Welcome to Living Our Faith with Archbishop Jerome Listeicki. The latest news, important issues, and stories of Catholics living their faith in the Archdiocese of Milwaukee. Here's co-host Bob Bennis.
Broadcasting from the studios in the Cousins Center, the hub of the Archdiocese of Milwaukee, overlooking beautiful Lake Michigan. Welcome to a brand new year, and welcome to another edition of Living Our Faith. Here on Relevant Radio, we say hello, Happy New Year to Archbishop Jerome Listeicki. Good morning, Your Excellency.
Happy New Year to you, Bob, and the gift of the Magi. So we're January 6th, so my gosh, the Feast of Three Kings.
And I'm blessed because I am now, this starts officially the third year of me being able to sit here and co-host this show. So I really do appreciate the opportunity that I get week in and week out to sit here and join you as you welcome different, varied, exciting guests.
Well, you've done a great job, Bob. We've teamed up to be able to do this, so this is great.
And exciting shows coming up on the horizon the rest of this month as we kick off 2017. We've got Catholic Charities will be joining us next weekend. Father David Reith, the Vicar of Catholic Charities. Then we're going to be talking with Dr. Kathleen Sapelka. We've got Catholic Schools Week coming up later on in the month. And then we'll close out the month with a very important topic, and that's vocations, and particularly Hispanic vocations.
Right. Very much needed. I know, and our guest will chime in and echo that the Hispanic community, which always needs attention in any archdiocese or diocese. And certainly we'd love to have more especially native Hispanic vocations, yes, which was really, really wonderful.
It's always a blessing to do this show, but it's especially fulfilling to sit and to listen to an archbishop interview a bishop.
Oh, yeah, well, good. Let's get on with it then.
Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. We are so pleased to have Bishop Joseph Perry, who is an auxiliary bishop in Chicago. Really, if the listeners will have to excuse me because I'll slip into Joe because we're contemporaries, and I hope he says Jerry, in the back, or Jerome. I think Francis always called me Jerome. We were auxiliaries also together for a period of time, and I know the quality of this man, so it's very hard to kind of help share that with everyone when you hear like an objective interview. I can say he was ordained in 1975 for the Archdiocese of Milwaukee, and he has been a canonist here. He's well respected by the entire community. Whenever I go around any place in Milwaukee, I mean, they speak with such tremendous respect and fondness of Bishop Perry, and always that little reluctance that Chicago kind of stole them and it took him down. But I also have known Bishop Perry as he was auxiliary bishop when I was in the seminary, and his generosity in terms of taking his own intelligence and knowledge about canon law and actually teaching it at the seminary. Bishop Perry also has a kind of a wealth of liturgical background, and I can tell you that he's oftentimes asked here by the Institute of Jesus Christ the Sovereign Priest to come up and basically celebrate the extraordinary form. Is a wonderful rich liturgical background that's capable of doing that. In fact, I remember, Bishop Perry won't remember this, but I remember one time I was at a meeting with other auxiliaries in Chicago, and Bishop Perry had his notebook open, and I could see him mouthing certain words, and I came around and looked. He was getting ready to celebrate liturgy in Polish, so I don't know if you remember that,
yes,
Joseph, but he was getting ready. I said, Joseph, what are you, but it shows you the heart of the person wishing to basically reach out and making sure that people feel comfortable, that people feel embraced by the church. This is the quality of the bishop that we have here, and I'm so happy that he's a contemporary because we get a chance to share, our love and vision for the church together. And I certainly, as a new auxiliary, when I was a new auxiliary in Chicago, I certainly learned a lot from Bishop Perry. In fact, a sidebar. I avoided almost a tragic mistake that I would have made. I received this letter, from Rome about the fact that they were asking to attend this this meeting of newly ordained bishops, and other bishops will be, oh, you're going to get all sorts of things. You're going to get stuff like think about doing a pilgrimage with us, or come here. You just can ignore that stuff. And I was going to ignore it, and I happened to show it to my brother Joseph here, and Joseph looked and he goes, No. This is from the Vatican. You've got to do. It's not you would like to do this. You've got to do this. And so I was in what they refer to as the first classes of baby bishops. Where they took us in. But I would have missed school had it not been for Bishop Perry. Wow. Joseph, so good to have you here home.
Thank you, Jerome.
In Milwaukee. Thank you, Joseph. So good to have you back in Milwaukee. And we're going to be talking a little bit about African American evangelization. And Bishop Perry has done a wonderful little monograph for us on literally Black Catholic spirituality, and which is just beautiful. It's going to be released to all of our parishes, and which kind of raises a sense of pride of being a Catholic, and especially being Black Catholic. A person who knows that experience and embraces us and sees the presence of the Lord. So, welcome, my brother Joseph.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're here. In evangelization in the African Black Catholic community, okay, what do you see? What's your vision? What do you see happening in the Black Catholic community?
Well, traditionally for evangelization, as you know, in the Black Catholic community, schools have been very, very key. Now, as schools are not the plethora number as they used to be, we have a smaller terrain with which to work with. To say nothing of smaller child and youth population numbers. I think all of our Catholic schools are struggling with that notion unto itself, even before you consider any particular ethnic group. A place like Chicago has closed well over 80-some schools simply because we don't have the child population number. But as far as evangelization goes in the African-American community, receiving people into the faith, schools has always been very, very key. So wherever we have them, we really have to make sure that we shore them up. And if we don't have schools, our parish youth, child and youth ministry programs are vitally important, because you get to the heart of adults through their kids.
Sure.
That's the secret. And anything that's going on in the Catholic Church with children and youth, that's how you get to the adults. And that's where I see it's key at this moment, at least at this point in time. It's our youth and then of course adult catechesis. It's extremely important. RCIA has been the model through which we have worked with adults. There are some questions being posed about RCIA these days, largely having to do with its length, and especially considering a population of people who are already baptized and who are already Christian, who know the faith. We notice some parishes pull them through RCIA programs, and some people think it's something of an overkill. It depends on the individual. You almost have to take each individual on their own and come up with a program of religious education that's going to be catering to them, and then, of course, being embracive of them and to keep them aboard.
And for those people who are listening but may not know RCIA?
Rite of Christian initiation for adults. It's the path of the journey of bringing a person to the faith, into the faith, adopting the faith for their lifetime.
How do you keep the enthusiasm?
Education is the key, and most adults will tell you, my God, if there's anything that I can sacrifice, I cannot sacrifice my education of my kids, my children. That's most important. And so you find adults, parents, who will put all of their resources into the education of their children just so that they can happen. And we are fortunate to have, at least in our Catholic schools, the complement of religious education and a faith formation to carry this forward and make them leaders for tomorrow, church and in society.
One of the things I've worried about, Joseph, is that as I look at the statistics of the Black Catholic community, I see no significant progression of evangelization in the community in almost 30 to 40 years. Mm-hmm. That it's pretty much remained
kind of static.
The same, static. Mm-hmm. Now, you and I can debate upon, why this is so, why there hasn't been, especially basically in maybe reluctance, outreach. Maybe it's because of the ecumenical age, that we live in, that you don't want to tamper with. If somebody's basically a dedicated Baptist, why convert them? Why try to conversion route to Catholicism? But it seems to me that the increase in basically the embrace of Catholicism is something which would be indicative of at least shaping a vision, a Catholic vision.
There are a couple of reasons for that. I can say you mentioned one of them is ecumenism, and there's a peculiar interpretation of ecumenism that says that everybody's all right where they're at. We all worship the same God.
Yep.
We've kind of taken a back step from outside of the Catholic Church. There is no salvation, which was the catechism we were taught ever since we were kids. But we took a step back from that because ecumenism kind of is all-embracive. Some people might say our approach is more syncretistic right now, that anything and everybody is all right, just as long as you're spiritual. It doesn't matter what you believe, who you believe, or how you believe it. So that's one cause. Another cause is the renaissance of the black church that was kind of, I would say, inevitable with civil rights that came and the economic infusion into the African-American community. It overflowed into the church. And it branched itself off in a variety of expressions thereof, especially non-denominational expressions and megachurches. And given the neo-black consciousness movement that took place after civil rights, you found a lot of people who gravitated and even left the Catholic Church who were black converts to enter these kinds of religious and denominational expressions because they articulated the black ethos. And you saw a different image of the black minister as opposed to the small, southern, rural frame church where people were so much accustomed. When they came up here, they saw something much bigger, and the glitz and the music and all that kind of stuff kind of overtook. And I think it is still with us to some degree.
We're talking with Bishop Joseph Perry, and we're talking about African-American evangelization. We're going to take our first break. We're going to hear what's going on with our friends over at the Catholic Herald. You're listening to Living Our Faith here on Relevant Radio for Southeast Wisconsin. This is Bob Bennis with exciting news if you have sales experience. We're planning to add to our sales staff here at Relevant Radio. If you have sales experience, preferably in the media, but it's not necessary, but if you're organized, self-motivated, and enjoy working as an important part of a team, this could be the position for you. As a Relevant Radio account executive, you'll help with the marketing and branding of local businesses that support Relevant Radio and share your Catholic values. If working in a fun, fast-paced radio environment for a growing Catholic company sounds like a fit for you, let's talk about it. We'll help you get started, give you the tools to be successful in the marketplace. Why don't you send your resume to hr@relevantradio.com. Now, you're hearing this message on Relevant Radio, so I think I have a pretty good idea of your commitment to your Catholic faith. Let's take that next step now and find out if joining our Relevant Radio team is for you. Again, send your resume to hr@relevantradio.com. Thanks for listening to Relevant Radio.
Good morning. I'm Grace David with news from the Archdiocese of Milwaukee Catholic Schools. Popular Catholic musician and speaker Luke Separ will be performing and sharing his story at St. Jerome Parish in Oconomowoc on Sunday, January 29th at 9:15 a.m. Contact St. Jerome Parish for more information. Registration is open for a one-day intensive dance experience featuring nationally renowned teachers from across the country. Dance students in grades 8 through 12 have the opportunity to interface with some of the best instructors in the world of dance. This opportunity will be held at Pius XI Catholic High School in their Performing Arts Center on Sunday, January 29th from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Students in grades 8 through 12 throughout the Milwaukee area are welcome. For more information, contact Pius XI Catholic High School Dance Department at 414-290-7000. That's 414-290-7000. Alan Borsuk, Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel education reporter, named Seton Catholic Schools as the Organization of the Year in Education for 2016. In his December 31st article, he states, "The Seton effort, launched in earnest in September, is focusing on improving the leadership, education programs, and business practices of Milwaukee Catholic schools. Congratulations, Seton Catholic Schools." And now headlines from the Catholic Herald and CatholicHerald.org. While some people have called 2016 the worst year ever, good things happened in the Catholic Church throughout southeastern Wisconsin. This week's Catholic Herald and CatholicHerald.org highlight many of these things in its year in review. Last summer, pastors of several denominations from Central City churches got together to help build a house on North 39th Street for the Nation family as part of Habitat for Humanity's Senior Pastor Build. The family moved into the house just before Christmas. Representing the Catholic community in the build were Father Tim Kitsky, Vicar General for the Archdiocese's Urban Ministry, and Father Bob Stiefvater, pastor of All Saints Church. Read this story of hope and peace in the January 5th Catholic Herald and at CatholicHerald.org. This past Wednesday, we celebrated the anniversary of an important event, the 7th anniversary of Archbishop Listeicki's installation as the 11th Archbishop of Milwaukee. The Archbishop reflects upon those years in his Herald of Hope column in this week's Catholic Herald and at CatholicHerald.org. Until next week, this is Grace David. Thank you for listening. We now return you to Living Our Faith with Archbishop Listeicki.
Our guest today is Bishop Joseph Perry. We are sitting here having a roundtable discussion, a bishop and an archbishop, and I'm loving every minute of it. Your Excellency, you're involved in the sainthood for the cause of Father Augustus Tolton.
Yes.
And I read about it. Why don't you tell us about that, because it sounded pretty exciting.
Father Augustus Tolton he and his family were slaves on a farm in northeast Missouri. He was born in 1854, died in Chicago in 1897. And his mother, about in the fall of 1863, had took him and his siblings on a daring escape up to Hannibal, Missouri, and they were caught by slave catchers. They escaped the farm because their owner had died, and he died without a will. So appraisers were coming around assessing the value of everything, all the farm equipment, the animals, and including the slaves. We have the appraisal document included in the acts of his cause that listed all of the slaves and what their monetary value was. And little Augustus, who was 9 years old at the time, was valued at $25.
Wow.
And his mother, 50. Anyway, the family went up to Hannibal, Missouri, and the father joined the Union Army to help fight for freedom from slavery. And then the Union soldiers took their mother and the 3 children to a dilapidated rowboat on the shore of the Mississippi. Across the Mississippi was Illinois, which was a free state. And Quincy was kind of an abolitionist, kind of a stronghold. And that's where she educated her children to the best of her ability, notwithstanding some difficulties with small-town racism at that time. Priests and nuns who tutored him in between his classes noticed a spark in him, a spiritual spark, and they tried to get him into a seminary, and they couldn't in this country at that time. No one had ever seen a Roman collar around a black man's neck before. But the Franciscans managed to connect with their superior general in Rome, who knew the prefect of the Congregation for the Propaganda of the Faith. And after about a year and a half, they got him into the Propaganda Seminary, the urban college at the time. So he went there in 1880, was ordained a priest in 1886. They thought they would send him to Africa because they thought, given the kind of the racial apartheid of our country and the whole Civil War thing and the messiness of Reconstruction, he could not be a success here. But the cardinal, the night before he was ordained, said, this was Giovanni Simeone at the time. He says, the United States considers itself the most enlightened nation on the face of the earth. And if that is true, they ought to be able to receive a black priest. So we changed your orders. We're not sending you to Africa. We're going to send you back home. At that time, it was the Diocese of Alton, A-L-T-O-N. Today it's Springfield, Illinois. They sent him back, and he worked at a parish, St. Joseph's in Quincy, until some local pastors thought he was making inroads. There were white people leaving the parishes, going to St. Joseph's, listening to his sermons and getting their confessions heard and getting married by him, and that caused a row.
Wow.
A German priest who was a neighbor of his at St. Boniface kept going back and forth to the bishop complaining about this upstart priest and had some other unkosher words about it. Eventually, the bishop told him he has to get out of town. And at that time, Archbishop Patrick Feehan of Chicago wanted to do something with black Catholics who were worshiping in a basement of Old St. Mary's downtown. And he invited Tolton to come up, and through the necessary arrangements with the Propaganda Fide, they got him transferred to Chicago. And he started the first black Catholic parish in the United States, St. Monica, at 36 in Dearborn. They got up to the first level of that. And then Chicago was hit by a heat wave in the first week of July, 1897. We have the newspaper clippings where they list all the people that they found dead in their homes and so forth. There was no electricity for most people in those days, no fans or that kind of thing. And Tolton was getting off of a train coming back from a retreat in Bourbonnais, Illinois, and he collapsed a few blocks from his rectory. And they rushed him to nearby Mercy Hospital, and they begged Mother Raphael, a Mercy nun, would she take this black man into their hospital. The Mercy nuns knew him because his church is really virtually down the street from the hospital. So they took him in and they worked on him for about 8 hours, and then he died about 8:30 on July 9th. He was 43.
Oh.
We dug up his remains last Saturday.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
under the nihil obstat of the congregation. We took 2 days after some radar foundings into the earth. We found his remains, and it was really a religious experience for a lot of the cemetery workers.
Sure.
We don't get to do that too often.
To exhume the body of a potential saint.
Yeah.
It's really something.
It was a powerful experience. So the case is in Rome, and we hope it develops and moves along.
Now, just to do a little plug for you, there's a book that's developed, an illustrated book on the life of Father Tolton. It's wonderfully, it's illustrated. You know, like I would say, you know, you would open up a comic book, but it's really beautifully well
Rich
done.
in pictures.
Rich in pictures, and a wonderful gift for anybody in 7th, 8th, first year high school, 6th grade.
The adults get more kick out of it than the young people.
I enjoyed seeing it, type of thing.
And unfortunately, Cardinal George did not live to see the results of that, but probably see it down the road.
He's talking to Tolton right now,
Yeah,
so I don't
talking about
he's
it.
probably telling Tolton this now, you know, but you forgot to study, and here's the philosophy, you know.
Yes.
You didn't know Heidegger, did you? You know,
Hume, Kant, Hegel.
Let me ask you, since we don't have too much time left, let me ask you, what are the successes and what are the challenges for a black Catholic in today's church?
Well, we go back to what we have seen and heard, which was a pastoral letter put out by the African American bishops back in 1984. It's a brilliant letter that kind of charted where we have been and where we are now. And the African American bishops noted a point of maturity in the African American Catholic community, that we who have been for years since, you know, slavery was emancipated, have been on the recipient end of evangelization, catechesis, and so forth. Now we are in a position where we can minister to others. We're, in a sense, on a peerage platform with other Catholics who have been here for some time and those who have recently arrived. On the downside of that, we still do not, and we never have had, an indigenous clergy. Our vocations peaked somewhere about the mid-1980s, and associated with everybody else's downswing on the ski slope, so to speak, ours was even more dramatic. There's about 170, 180 priests of African American heritage right now in the country, religious and diocesan. We can use some more. There's been a little uptick with the numbers we've noticed in the last 4 or 5 years. So priestly vocations is on the downside. We've made gains in terms of African American leadership in many departments and agencies and dioceses across the country. We'll always be a smaller unit of the Catholic Church in this country, well, just the sheer fact of it all. But I think we're at a point where we can be proud of what we have accomplished thus far. with parishes numbers, even though those numbers are flat right now, and they probably will remain flat for the foreseeable future as I see it. But everywhere you go, and when I speak around the country, the enthusiasm and the interest and the energy in the African American community really is rather high.
Bishop Perry, been a great show to kick off 2017 with. We thank you very much for joining us today. We're going to take our final break, and we'll be right back in just a moment.
This is Bob Bennis with exciting news if you have sales experience. We're planning to add to our sales staff here at Relevant Radio. If you have sales experience, preferably in the media, but it's not necessary, but if you're organized, self-motivated, and enjoy working as an important part of a team, this could be the position for you. As a Relevant Radio account executive, you'll help with the marketing and branding of local businesses that support Relevant Radio and share your Catholic values. If working in a fun, fast-paced radio environment for a growing Catholic company sounds like the fit for you, let's talk about it. We'll help you get started, give you the tools to be successful in the marketplace. Why don't you send your resume to hr@relevantradio.com. Now, you're hearing this message on Relevant Radio, so I think I have a pretty good idea of your commitment to your Catholic faith. Let's take that next step now and find out if joining our Relevant Radio team is for you. Again, send your resume to hr@relevantradio.com. Thanks for listening to Relevant Radio.
Drew Mariani.
So you look at your kids and how they're being attacked morally. You see how many are straying from the faith. We often talk about the attack on life, the redefinition of marriage, pornography, division in the family. And how do we remedy this? Well, God's mercy is the remedy. But I'll tell you what else is. We have that powerful chaplet that's a sword in one hand. Our Lady's also given us the rosary. That's the sword in the other. When we pray the rosary, it's actually meditating on the face of Christ. When you first pray your rosary, it may feel like it takes forever. Now that I pray it on a very regular basis, one rosary flies by. And it becomes easy, it becomes beautiful, and there's actually a joy that comes with it. You start to look forward to actually praying this prayer. Father Don Calloway.
Don't worry. We all get distracted. Even St. Louis de Montfort talks about that in The Secret of the Rosary. It happens. We don't have angelic precision to concentrate. We just do the best we can. And I think our Lord and Our Lady are pleased with that.
The Drew Mariani Show, afternoons at 3 Eastern, 2 Central on Relevant Radio.
That wraps things up for this week, and we will close the show as we always do with a prayer, Your Excellency.
Sure, and this being our first show in the beginning of the year, let us give praise to our God as together we say, Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. St. Peter Claver,
pray for us.
And may God's blessings be upon us, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thanks for joining us today, and have a wonderful weekend. And let's all be transformed by the Spirit.
This has been Living Our Faith with Archbishop Jerome Listeicki and co-host Bob Bennis. Join us again next week for the latest news, important issues, and stories of Catholics living their faith in the Archdiocese of Milwaukee.